Now I am audible. Huh? Yeah. Good. So the advantages of the Poisson's equation was it basically gives how the electric potential varies in a spatial direction. So to solve the Poisson's equation, we start with the Gauss law. So we know that in a Gauss law, the divergence of the electric flux density equal to rho v, and we know the electric flux density is epsilon times c. So using that, what we'll get del dot epsilon E is equal to rho v. So which results and del dot E is equal to rho v by epsilon. And we already know the electric field intensity is the negative of gradient of potential, and we can substitute that. So we'll get del dot minus del V is equal to rho v by epsilon. So which means you will get del dot del V is called, in the vector identities we have seen, the Laplacian operator. So del square V is equal to minus rho v by epsilon. So this is basically said to be the Poisson's equation. So the application of Poisson's equation, you can find it out in your electronic devices and circuit theory. So where, suppose if you have a PN junction diode, and this is your depletion region, right? So if because P side is consisting of full of acceptor atoms and N side is consisting of full donor atoms, you know the charge density in P side and N side, right? Na into Q, and the charge density on N side is equal to Nd into Q. So once you know the value of rho v, and let us say it is varying, the potential varies in the x direction. So after solving the Poisson's equation, what you will get? So del square V can be written as d square by dx square is equal to some constant. So this value will be some constant. And the value of rho v I have given here on the P side, and this is on the N side. So when you try to solve this, and you will finally get how the potential varies as a function of distance. So that is one of the major application. But ultimately what the Poisson's equation says was the variation of this potential in a spatial direction. Suppose if the region is source free, suppose in the medium, if there are no charges exist, which means your rho v is equal to 0, then the Poisson's equation will be written as del square v is equal to 0. So in a source free region, del square v is equal to 0. So you need not to get confused here. The Poisson's equation, just if you solve the Poisson equation, you will come to know how the potential varies as a function of distance. That is the main advantage. So any questions in the Poisson's equation? So next one is the method of images. This is basically a new concept how you can solve your problems. See, you can see here this whatever I have shown here, this is basically an equipotential surface, and assume that this is a pure conducting surface. And I have assumed the potential is exactly 0. So which means that you can assume it as this is a pure ground plane where the potential is 0. Now I have placed one test charge of magnitude q coulombs at a height of h. Now the basic question what I had here is that if we have only one source which will be existing, you know that the potential so if we have only one source which will be existing and the distance is far, So using the concept what we have studied, the potential due to a point charge is equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon into R. R in this case is H. Right now, this charge has been placed at a height of H from a conducting ground plane. So it should reflect a potential of Q by 4 epsilon into H on a ground surface. But I have assumed that the potential of the ground will be always zero, right? So there is a contradiction. So if you place only one charge above a conducting ground plane, ideally speaking, this is a voltage that has to be developed on a ground. But do you think by placing this charge, the potential on the ground will change? That means when you place a charge of Q coulomb at a height of H from a conducting ground plane, will it influence the potential of the ground? That means the ground potential will change from zero.
It should change, sir.
It should change.
Yes, sir.
Suppose if you have a pure ground plane, generally you can consider the earth. Earth is always at a potential of 0 volt, right? Can you change the potential of the earth by placing any charge in the space? Will it happen?
No, it doesn't change though. But now looking at it, should change.
Generally, the potential of the earth will never change. As long as the ground is at 0 volt potential, the potential will not change. But you are getting a different contradiction here. As per the formula is concerned, as the charge is finite and the distance is finite, it should reflect in a different potential. But still, the ground will maintain the potential as a 0 volt. The reason because was, see here, suppose assume that there is a particular electric field which is incidenting on a ground conductor. So ground is really an equipotential conductor, right? So what will happen whenever there is an incident wave? So since this is basically a conducting material, the full electric field gets reflected back, right? So in addition to the incident wave, you will have a reflected wave as well. So till now what you have considered this portion is only due to the incident wave, right? So since this is a conductor, it will additionally going to create other electric field component, that is the reflected component. So if you see the magnitude of incident and reflected, both will be same. Because the conductor doesn't allow the electric field to pass through that. So whatever the electric field intensity incidented on the conductor, everything will get reflected back with a opposite polarity. So if this is causing 1 meter on the ground surface, the reflecting electric field also causes for minus 10 volt per minute, minus 10 volts. So the resultant potential will never change. So the final conclusion was, when you place any test charge at a height of, let us say, h from a conducting ground plane, the ground plane potential will remain same. The reason because of whatever the charge is contributing the electric field, there will be another electric field which will be created. So that makes the potential on the vector remain same. So did you got my point?
Yes, sir.
Now, for the mathematical
Sir,
sake,
can you repeat the point?
yeah, I will once again repeat. Just I will take a new slide. So this is your conducting ground plane. You have placed a test charge of q coulombs. Ideally speaking, q is there and some radial distance is there. The potential of q by 4 pi epsilon into h should be present. But as I mentioned, the ground is maintaining its potential as 0 volt. This is happening because whatever the electric field created by this charge, the moment once it hits the conducting plane, everything will get reflected back. So because the conductor doesn't allow any electric field into the next medium, so whatever is incidenting on the conductor, everything is going to be reflected back. So what is the meaning of that? Suppose because of this Q and because of this incident electric field, let us say some 10 volts has been created on the conductor. And this reflected field is also created in the same medium. So this will also cause for another minus 10 volts, maintaining the ground potential as 0. So because the incident and reflected electric field both are equal in magnitude, the potential also remains same. So if it is 10 volt due to incident field and another 10 volt due to the reflected field. And you can see the direction, it is exactly opposite. So that is the reason why one is plus 10 volt, the other one is minus 10 volt. So the ground is maintaining its potential because of both incident and reflected fields. Now, for the mathematics sake, I can say that the incident electric field is because of the original charge itself, and the reflected electric field, I can imagine there is a negative charge which is below the ground plane, and I can replace the whole part. So the reflected wave, I can imagine that it can be due to some amount of the charge which is located below the ground plane at the same distance h. So as the magnitude of incident and reflected field both are same, the magnitude of will be same in both the cases. This will be q and this will be q. And why I have mentioned minus q for this image source was, you can see here the incident field and reflected waves propagating in a different directions, exactly 180 degrees phase shift. So that is the reason why I can account for minus q. But the point is very clear, this image charge is not really existing. Just for the mathematical manipulation's sake, I have replaced the contribution of the reflected field by imagining a virtual source presented below the ground plane. That virtual source is having a magnitude of minus q coulombs. So when any problem is given something like this, a charge placed above a conducting ground plane, now you should imagine that you can introduce a new test charge below the ground plane at the same distance. So why you have assumed this imaginary charge was, this is the contribution of the reflected electric field. So this is just to solve the problems, to make the problem simpler. The contribution of the reflected wave is compensated by imagining a virtual source below the ground plane. So the concept clear? Good. So this is a very, very important topic actually.
Yes.
There are so many questions has been asked in GATE based on this topic. So that is the reason why you can see here, the moment once any charge has been placed at a distance of height from a ground plane, the amount of the reflected wave is contributed by taking an imaginary source, or you can say the image source of same magnitude with opposite polarity. So that is basically called your method of images. Now you try to find out what is the potential on the ground right now. So the potential exactly at midway between the plates is nothing but the potential due to the original source plus potential due to the image source. So what is the potential due to the original source? That will be q by 4 pi epsilon into 1 by r. R is h here. Plus, what is the potential due to image source? This magnitude will be minus q by 4 pi epsilon into, it is also placed at a distance of h. So what is the resultant potential here right now? 0. So the ground is maintaining its potential 0 by considering both original source and image source. Yes, you can ask questions.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Yes.
The source, we don't need to consider the electric field for the virtual source.
No, that's what I was
Just
writing.
only for the
I have been
calculation of
considering. I have been
potential.
considering the electric field equation. That is the reason why I have considered here is the potential of image.
Okay.
The potential due to the image source is contributed by taking into account of the reflected wave. Clear?
Yes, fine. Yes.
Yeah. That's what I was telling. See, to make the problem simpler, to account both incident wave and reflected wave, you can consider the incident wave is contributed due to the original source and the reflected wave is contributed due to the image source. So whatever the problem it is there, you will be able to solve it. Okay, so we'll see some problems. Then you can understand more about the method of images concept. And we'll try to move on to the next new concept, that is the boundary conditions. So this is also very, very important topic for the gate. So what is the boundary condition says here? So you can see here, this is an interface. So interface is the one which is separating two different mediums. So below this interface, I had a medium 2 and I had medium 1. So the medium 1 and medium 2 can be of different types. So it can be free space, dielectric, or conductor, or a combination. So one will be free space, other one will be dielectric. Or one will be free space, the other one will be conductor. Or sometimes it will be both dielectrics. So if there is an interface which is separating two different mediums, and if you know the electric field intensity in one medium, by the help of boundary conditions, you are able to define what is the electric field intensity in the other medium. So if you know in medium 2, what will be the electric field intensity, using boundary condition, you can exactly say how much electric field will be there in the first medium. So the advantages of the boundary condition was to derive the relationship between the electric field intensity across two different mediums. So that is what the advantages of boundary condition. Now, for an example, in this slide, I have assumed that the wave is entering from medium 2 onto medium 1. So I have considered the wave is entering from medium 2 to medium 1. See here, this is your electric field intensity, which is entering in medium 2. So I have resolved this electric field vector into two components. So one component which is parallel to the interface, that I can call it as a tangential component. So this is your electric field intensity E2. So the E2 can be resolved one component parallel to the interface. So the parallel component is basically called tangential component. So this E tan 2 is the tangential component of electric field in second medium. And the other component you can resolve, which is perpendicular to the interface. So you can see here, this component is perpendicular to the interface. So that's why I was calling it as a normal component. So this is a normal component in second medium. Clear? The tangential and normal component, have you understood? So if you resolve the electric field vector parallel to the interface, that you can call it as a tangential. If you resolve the electric field vector perpendicular to the interface, you can call it as a normal component. So is it clear? Yes. So similarly, this is your electric field in the first medium, right? So let me call it as E1, electric field in the medium 1. So similarly, this I can resolve parallel component. So that's why I can call it as E tan 1. And this is your perpendicular component. You can call it as E normal 1. Now we will separately see what will happen to the tangential component in one boundary condition and what is the relation between these normal component using another boundary condition. So we'll try to do that. So for that, to start with that, I have considered a small loop in this particular direction. So which is covering a small part of the interface. So I have covered a portion of the interface assuming a loop from A, B, B to C, C to D and D to A. So what is your KVL says in that loop was, the KVL says that line integral of electric field intensity in a closed loop has to be 0. Right? Now, how to find the total line integral in this particular loop was, you need to individually do the integration from A to B, B to C, C to D and D to A. So what I have considered, the width of this loop I have considered delta W and the height of the loop I have considered delta H, which is approximately negligible here. Okay. Now, so when you do the integration from A to B, what is the integral now? So when you are moving from A to B, you are in medium 1. So E tan 1 come into picture. So E tan 1 is the electric field vector. into what is the length you have covered? From A to B, you have covered a length of delta W. So this is the integral when you are moving from A to B. So what will happen when you move from B to C? So when you are moving from B to C, half of the duration you are in the first medium and the another half you are there in the second medium. But it doesn't matter about the magnitude of electric field. What is the distance you covered from B to C? So that is nothing but your delta H. So since delta H is tends to 0, the line integral from B to C can be neglected. Similarly, what is the integration from C to D? So when you are moving from C to D, you are moving in medium 2 and you are moving in the opposite direction of E tan 2, right? So the corresponding electric field will be minus E tan 2 into the length covered will be delta W. And do the integration from D to A again back. So when you do the integration from D to A, the height is negligible. So the line integral can be neglected. So what is the total line integral when you move in this particular loop? First, you can add all this. So when you add all the line integrals, you will finally get E tan 1 into delta W minus E tan 2 into delta W will be equal to 0. So which will reflect your E tan 1 should be same as your E tan 2. So this is your first boundary condition. So you can see here, what is the conclusion? It doesn't matter what is the medium 2 and what is the medium 1. If any electric field is entering from one medium to the other medium, the tangential component of electric field remains same. So if the wave enters from one medium to the other medium, if it is an electric field component, what this equation says, the tangential component of electric field in both the mediums remains same. So any questions, please ask now.
This wave has this is like electric field wave or like it's another any wave which is has both
No,
electric and
actually,
magnetic?
it's basically electromagnetic wave, which consists of both electric field and magnetic field. Till now, we are restricting our discussion to electric fields, right? So we have been discussing only the electric fields part. So this, whatever the signal I have considered here is only the electric field. Okay. So there are two more boundary conditions are there for magnetic fields also. We will discuss in the magnetostatics part.
Sir,
But this is purely for the electric field.
if you would have considered delta W also tends to 0, so then
Yeah.
this would change, right?
Correct. You cannot consider delta W is equal to 0 because see here, as I mentioned, this is an interface. Interface means it's nothing but a small surface charge, right?
Yes, sir.
So to cover the surface charge, you need not to consider a bigger loop, right? Because the thickness of the surface charge is how much? Very small. If you take a sheet charge, what is the thickness of sheet charge?
Very less.
That is the reason why in that case, what will happen? You can ignore the line integral.
Okay.
So whereas you cannot ignore the length because the length will be matter for you, right? Because the length of the sheet charge is more where the thickness is small. So that is the reason why you should ignore delta W, but delta H can be ignored because the thickness of the sheet is very small. Yeah. So the conclusion is it doesn't matter whatever the medium it is. So between two mediums, the tangential component of electric field intensity remains same. Now we will see what will happen to the normal component. So there is another boundary condition for the normal component. So you can see the diagram, same thing. This is my interface. And this interface, I was assuming that there is some charge present on the interface I have assumed. So that is given by rho s coulomb per meter square. And the wave enters from medium 2 to medium 1 like this. So this time I have taken the flux density into picture. But it doesn't matter. You know the relation between the flux density and E. D is equal to epsilon E. So once you know the value of D, you can easily derive electric field intensity also. So you consider this is electric flux density in medium 2. So this will be the tangential component and this will be the normal component. Similarly, this will be the tangential component and this will be the normal component. So what I have done here, I have considered a small cylinder, something like a small box, and I kept it perpendicular to the interface. So what will happen, since this interface is charged, there will be some amount of the flux leaving the top surface and some amount of the flux leaving the bottom surface. So what is your Gauss law says? There will be some amount of flux leaving in top and bottom direction. So the net amount of flux leaving the surface is exactly equal to how much charge is present inside it, right? So I can apply the Gauss law here. So what is the Gauss law says? The flux leaving this small surface, small cylinder you can see here, is equal to the total charge enclosed in it. So can you tell me what is the flux leaving the surface here? The flux is leaving from the top plate. So how much flux is leaving the top plate? So when you go in the upward direction, this will be corresponding to d normal 1. So corresponding value of flux density will be d normal 1 into the flux is coming out in an area of delta S here. This is the surface area. Similarly, what is the flux leaving the bottom direction? When you are moving it downwards, you are moving against to the d normal 2. So that means minus d normal 2 is the corresponding flux density, and the flux is coming in an area of delta S. And you can see that there is no flux leaving the sides. You can ignore that. There is no flux leaving the sides. So what will be the total flux right now leaving this cylinder is equal to the flux leaving the top plate plus the flux leaving the bottom plate. So when you add both together, what you will get, d normal 1 into delta S minus d normal 2 into delta S is equal to, let us say this surface is enclosed with a charge of q coulombs. I don't know what is the value of q. I just leave it like that. So what is the value of d normal 1 minus d normal 2 is equal to q by delta S. So can you tell me what is the value of q by delta S? The charge present within the cylinder divided by small amount of delta S.
Rho S, sir.
Very good. It is nothing but the surface charge density present on the interface. So this is your second boundary condition. So what is the condition? In the previous slide you have seen the tangential component of electric field remains same when it enters from one medium to the other medium, whereas the normal component is not same and it purely depends on how much charge is present on the interface. Suppose if there is no charge present on the interface, suppose there are no charge lies on the interface, means you can say that your normal component of flux density remains same. Is it clear? Any questions here?
Sir,
Yeah. Yes.
can we write as E normal 1 minus E normal 2 is equal to rho S by epsilon?
No, because the permittivity of mediums will be different, right?
Okay, sir.
You got the point right now. So you will get epsilon 1 E normal 1 minus epsilon 2 E normal 2 is equal to rho S, right? So as long as epsilon 1 and epsilon 2, you will never get same, right? Because if it is two different mediums, your epsilon 1, epsilon 2 will be different.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So the thing is, when the wave enters from one medium to other medium, for electric fields, the tangential component remains same. And the difference in the normal component of flux density is equal to the charge density present on the interface. So these two are the boundary conditions. So we'll go to the next topic. And the next topic is nothing but it's a complete different topic. That is the capacitance part. So first of all, how to define, there are different type of capacitors will be existing, right? Parallel plate capacitor, and coaxial capacitor, spherical capacitor. First of all, what do you mean by a capacitance? So when I say a capacitance, everybody know about it's a parallel plate capacitor, right? And you already know the derivation part also, I think. The capacitance between parallel plate capacitor is A epsilon divided by D. But what actually happened here, the moment once you apply any voltage across a capacitor, there will be some amount of the charge which is inducing on each plate. Okay, so basically the capacitance is defined as the magnitude of the charge present on each plate divided by the potential difference between the conductors. So how much charge is present on each plate divided by the potential difference between these two plates defines the basic definition for capacitance. So using this same form, we know how to find out the potential difference if we know the electric field intensity here. So we know that the potential difference between these two can be found by integrating the electric field intensity from one plate to the other plate. So that's how we can define the electric potential difference. So we'll try to apply this formula to define the capacitance for different type of configurations. So first we will see the parallel plate capacitor. So in case of a parallel plate capacitor, I have assumed this is a positive charge, this is plus rho s, and this is a negative charge minus rho s coulomb per meter square, and the area remains same, and the separation between the charges is d. So in this case, I want to find out what will be the capacitance here. So I can apply the basic formula in your networks. So the capacitance is the charge divided by the potential difference. So first of all, what will be the charge present on each conductor? So since it is a surface charge, the total charge can be found by multiplying rho s with the area of the plate. So the charge on each conducting plate equal to rho s into A. So take it as equation 1. And what will be the potential difference between the conductors? That is given by minus integral E dot dl from one conductor to the other conductor. So in the last class we have solved what will be the electric field intensity between the plates in a capacitor.
Rho s by epsilon.
Rho s by epsilon, right? So this will be rho s by 2 epsilon, one charge, and this also rho s by 2 epsilon. Both will add together. So the electric field intensity will be rho s by epsilon into, and let us say you are moving from one plate to the other plate. So I can consider something as a dl only. And how much length you have covered? So when you are moving from this plate to this plate, you have covered a total length of d. So let us say you are integrating from 0 to d. So take the magnitude. So what you are going to get? Rho s by epsilon into d. Of course, this is a magnitude. So take it as equation 2. So what is the capacitance in this case? That will be Q divided by V naught. So that is 1 by 2. You take the ratio 1 by 2. You will finally get the value as A epsilon divided by D. So here we are trying to prove, we already know the equation in a parallel plate capacitor. We'll try to apply using our concepts. We'll try to derive the equation using our concepts. So is the approach clear? To find out capacitance in any configuration, first find out how much charge is existing on each conductor and find out the potential difference between the two conductors. So the ratio of charge divided by the potential difference gives the capacitance. So is the concept clear? Yes. Now this is very interesting part. It's very important here. Now what happened? So this is your one conducting plate and this is your another conducting plate. Okay. And the type of dielectric medium present between the conductor is not one medium right now. So a small part is filled with one medium, one kind of dielectric, and the other part is filled with a different dielectric. So what will be the effective capacitance here? So you can see here there is one capacitance exists in this part. So I can call it as C1. and this another capacitance exists here, C2. So this is your C equivalent. So the space between the conductors is filled with two dielectric mediums. Then what will happen to the resultant capacitance? So can you tell me what is the equivalent capacitance right now? When you look at from here to here, is it the series combination of C1 and C2 or parallel combination?
Series, sir.
Series combination. Right. So in case of a series capacitor, you already know what will be the formula. If two capacitors are connected in series, the resultant equivalent capacitance will be given by 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2. Right. So 1 by C equivalent is equal to 1 by. So please tell me what is the value of C1 here?
Sir, epsilon R1 A D1. A by D1.
Yeah, A remains same and permittivity will be epsilon naught epsilon R1 divided by, and how much distance it is there? D1 plus 1 divided by A epsilon naught and medium 2 epsilon R2 divided by D2. So you can simplify that. So 1 by C equivalent is equal to 1 by A epsilon naught, you take common and you will get D1 by epsilon R1 plus D2 by epsilon R2. So take the reciprocal right now to get the actual capacitance. So the reciprocal will be A epsilon naught divided by D1 by epsilon R1 plus D2 by epsilon R2. So this is the equivalent capacitance when the medium is divided horizontally. That means area remains constant here and the distance is separated. So one medium is having a distance of D1, the other one is having a distance of D2. So this is the equation for equivalent capacitance when area is constant. So you can remember this formula. And I was giving an assignment to you and you can try to solve this case right now. So this case, what will happen? The dielectric is also divided into two different mediums, but this time area get divided here. And this time my separation remains same. So what will happen? There exists one capacitance here. So call it as C1. And there exists another capacitance here, C2. So find out what will be an equivalent capacitance. So the dielectric medium is divided into two parts, but this time area gets divided. So what will be the equivalent capacitance here? So can you tell me the formula for equivalent capacitance in this case?
They're in parallel, sir.
Yeah, so what will be the formula?
C1 plus C2.
C1 plus C2.
Correct. C equivalent is equal to C1 plus C2. Good. So what will be the value of C1 here? Area is A1 and epsilon naught epsilon R1 divided by D plus A2 is the area and epsilon naught epsilon R2 divided by D. So what is the final equivalent capacitance you will get? Epsilon naught by D, you take it constant. So that will be A1 epsilon R1 plus A2 epsilon R2. So this is the equivalent capacitance provided the separation is constant. So in the previous case, area is constant. And in this case, the distance D is constant. So this is equation 2. And the same concept we will try to apply for the spherical capacitor. So spherical capacitor means you can see here, this is my inner conductor distributed with a charge of Q. And this is my outer conductor distributed with a charge of minus Q. And A is the inner conductor radius and B is the outer conductor radius. So here also there will be some capacitance exists between inner conductor and outer conductor, right? because one is positively charged, the other one will be the negatively charged, and in between there is a dielectric medium. So how to find out the equivalent values of capacitance here? So the same fundamental you can stick on to that, the charge divided by the potential difference. So you know the magnitude of charge on each conductor will be Q itself. And what will be the potential difference between inner conductor and outer conductor? So Q is Q only, and the potential difference is nothing but the potential on inner conductor minus the potential on outer conductor. So can you tell me what is the potential on inner conductor? Assume that there is a point source here. So it will produce a charge of Q coulombs here, right? And because it is enclosed by other conductor, you can assume minus Q. So what will be the potential on the surface of inner conductor at a distance of A?
Cube divided by 4 pi epsilon A.
Good. So Q into 4 by epsilon into A, and the potential on outer conductor is equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon into B. So you can substitute that. So C is equal to Q divided by V inner minus V outer. You will get Q by 4 pi epsilon 1 by A minus 1 by B. So which you will get the value as, you can simplify that, 4 pi epsilon by 1 by A minus 1 by B. So this is an equivalent capacitance between two spherical conductors. And I have a small question here. Suppose if we have only one inner conductor having a radius of A, will there be any capacitance here for an isolated sphere? Suppose there exists only one conductor, will there be any capacitance in any manner?
No, sir.
There will be some capacitance always with respect to ground. You would have been studied in your analog circuits also. That is basically called the parasitic capacitance, right? So which will not be the actual real capacitance, but that is a virtual parasitic capacitance. So even if you have an isolated sphere, there will be a capacitance always with respect to ground or always with respect to earth. For example, I will give you, our human body is also having a capacitance that can be around 150 to 200 picofarads with respect to ground. That means always there exists a parasitic capacitance with respect to ground. So what will be that value of the capacitance? So for an isolated sphere means there is only one conductor which will exist. What will be the equivalent capacitance with respect to ground? I can take Earth is also a very big conductor where the radius tends to infinity. Is my assumption correct? I can assume that the Earth is a huge conductor with a radius of infinity. Is my assumption correct?
Yes, sir.
So in that case, what will happen? When it is an isolated sphere, you can conductor, the Earth radius is tending to infinity. So if you substitute B tends to infinity, you will get the capacitance will be 4 pi epsilon into A. This will be the capacitance of an isolated sphere, but with respect to ground. So is the concept clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So next, last one we'll try. So that is a coaxial capacitor. So even if you see the coaxial cable also, I told whatever the charge present on the inner conductor is same as the charge present on outer conductor with equal and opposite sign. So this will be positively charged and this will be negatively charged. So there exists some capacitance between these two conductors, right? So to make the problem simpler, what I have done, I have assumed that the center, exactly at the center of the coaxial cable, I was assuming that there is a line charge present. And this line charge is creating some amount of charge on inner conductor, and the same amount of charge is present on the outer conductor also. So the concept remains same, but this time I have assumed that there is a line charge located at the center of the conductor. That line charge density is ρL coulombs per meter. So what is the basic definition for capacitance here? Q by potential difference. So how much charge will be present on the inner conductor or outer conductor? Can you tell me? There is a line charge placed at the center conductor. What will be the
Rho L
charge
into
on the
L,
inner
sir.
conductor? Yeah,
Rho L into L, sir.
good. The line charge density multiplied with the length of the coaxial cable. And what is the potential on the inner conductor? Can you tell me right now?
That is that Lon formula.
Yeah, you have not remembered.
Rho L by 2 pi epsilon.
Rho L by 2 pi epsilon into ln of 1 by A. A is the inner conductor radius. Similarly, what is the outer conductor radius? Rho L by 2 pi epsilon ln of 1 by B. So the potential difference will become potential on inner conductor minus and the potential on outer conductor. So rho L by 2 pi epsilon is a constant. So ln of 1 by A minus ln of 1 by B, you will get the ratio ln of B by A. You can verify that. So ln of x minus ln of y, I have written ln of x by y. So if you take the ratio of 1 by A and 1 by B, you will get B by A. So this is your equation 2. So what is the capacitance right now? Q by V naught. So take the ratio 1 by 2, you will get 2 pi epsilon into L is the length of coaxial cable divided by ln of B by A. So you can verify it once if you got free time. So this is the capacitance in a coaxial cable. So finally, the point is very clear here. So if any problem is given in capacitance, if it is a parallel plate capacitor, you can either remember the formula or otherwise stick on to the base. So to find out the capacitance, you need to find out the charge on either conductor and find the potential difference. So the charge divided by the potential difference will gives magnitude of the capacitance. So once this concept, if you understood, whatever the type of configuration it is, whether it is axial or spherical or parallel plate capacitor, you will be able to find out the capacitance. And for the gate point of view, it is very important for electrical students. So you have any questions, you can discuss right. So that is the theory part. So in today's, actually in this slide, what we have discussed, once again go back. So we have started with the Poisson's equation and we have seen the method of images concept and the boundary conditions and the capacitance. So any questions you can discuss now? So if you have any questions, you can ask.
Sir, these are all electrostatics. Means like how many more topics are there in electrostatics?
Yes, whatever I have discussed till now is purely the electrostatics part. And from the next session, I would like to start the magnetostatics.
Okay, means electrostatics is done today. Okay.
Electrostatics part is completed today. Okay, then shall we start the problems?
Yes, sir.
So that this part we can complete today and freshly we can start the magnetic fields in the next session. I thought. Yes. So see the question. So there are two parallel conducting plates are separated by a certain distance d along the x-axis. So these are the two parallel conducting plates and this is your x-axis. Then find the variation of electric potential between the plates. So can anybody tell me what is the answer for this? The first thing, if the question is asking about what will be the variation of electric potential, the thing which immediately needs to strike on your mind was the application Poisson function, right? So we have the Poisson's equation, how the potential with respect to distance. So if there is any question, find the variation potential, immediately it is the application of the Poisson's equation. But in this question, you don't require the concept also. Through verification, you will be able to solve. How was? So x is equal to 0 plate, there is a potential of V naught. So in the options, you put x is equal to 0, and where you will get V is equal to V naught. So can you figure out what are the options? So the first condition, x equal to 0, our potential has to become V naught. So which option is satisfying?
B and D both are there.
B and D satisfying. Now, what is the next condition? You put x is equal to D, your potential should become 0.
Oh, okay.
So definitely there should be a negative sign, right? So 1 minus x by D. So this is your answer.
Okay.
But still, we'll try to solve with the Poisson's equation. As I mentioned here, since nothing about the medium has given, you can assume that the medium is source free. So you can assume there are no charges present in the source, in the medium. So when there are no charges, using your Poisson's equation, you can say del square V is equal to 0, by assuming there are no charges present in the medium. Right? So since the variation of the potential is also happening along x, so del square V can be written as d square V by dx is equal to 0. So integrate one, what you will get, dV by dx is equals to some constant a. So integrate one more time. So V you are going to get in the form of a into x plus b. So this is the equation for the potential. So you can obtain the constants a and b by substituting the boundary condition. So what is the first condition? At x is equal to 0, the potential is equal to V naught. So which means, so V is equal to V naught is equal to a into 0 plus b. So which means the constant b, you are getting it as a V naught. So the second condition, at x is equal to d, I have given the potential is 0. So what is the value of that? 0 is equal to a into d. The value of b you already got, right, as V naught. Right? So what is the value of a you are going to get? Minus V naught by d. Now you can substitute the value of a and b in this equation 1. So your v becomes minus V naught by d into x plus b value will be V naught. So you can simplify that, it will be V naught into 1 minus x by d. So this is your previous year gate question. So have you understood this problem? Any doubts you can post. If you don't have any questions, please reply in the chat box so that I can understand. So the next one you can see here, this is very interesting question. So find the force on a point charge q kept at a distance of d from the surface and infinite ground plane in a medium of permittivity epsilon is. So this is the concept of your method of images, right? So what is the question? So this is your infinite conducting ground plane and the charge q is kept at d. So he's asking how much force is experienced by this charge because ground plane. So first of all, for the force to be existing, either electric field should be there or otherwise there should be another charge. So if there is two charges, you can apply the Coulomb's law to find out the force. And the second concept, if you know the electric field intensity in the medium, multiply with the charge to get the force. That is what your Lorentz force is. So first of all, why this charge is experiencing some kind of force was, I already mentioned you. In addition to the incident wave, there will be reflected electric field. So the reflected electric field is creating some kind of external field. So that electric field intensity multiplied by the charge is the force. But as I mentioned in a method of images, the reflective portion is accounted by considering an image source below the ground plane. Now the problem is simpler, right? So this is also at a distance of d. So what happened here? There are two charges. One will be q and other one will be minus q, separated by a total distance of 2d. So you can apply the Coulomb's law to find out the force on this charge. So what is the magnitude of the force right now? Q1 is plus q and q2 is minus q divided by 4 pi epsilon into the total distance is nothing but 2d whole square. So this will be q square divided by 16 pi epsilon d square. So this is the magnitude of the force which is existing. And can you tell me how that this point charge is trying to move? Is it moved away from the ground plane or towards the ground plane? Can you answer? Will this charge is trying to attract towards ground plane or moving up the ground plane?
Attract.
It's very simple, right? Because see here, this is of positive polarity and this is of negative polarity. So it is to move towards the ground plane because it is getting attracted by the minus q coulomb. So the force will be existing towards the ground plane. The magnitude will be q square by 16 pi epsilon d square and the force will be directed towards the plate.
Sir.
Questions? Yeah.
But if we consider, like you said, like we have to consider from a point means there should be a 1 coulomb charge, right?
Correct.
So if we consider a grounded metal plate
No,
as
this
a,
is
like,
not. This is electric field intensity. This is a force. Okay. See, this charge is experiencing a force due to other charge, right? The other charge is of negative polarity. So what it tries to do? It trying to get attracted towards that. 1 coulomb is not in picture right now. Okay.
okay.
This charge is trying to experience a force because of minus. And since this is of negative charge, it is trying to get attracted. So what you are saying is the definition of electric field intensity. Okay. If you want to find out electric field intensity at a particular point where there are no charges exist, you can assume that one charge is placed. But already there is exists of minus q coulomb, and since this is trying to attract towards minus q. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Next question. So this C naught is the capacitance of a parallel plate capacitor with air as a dielectric medium, as shown in figure. In this case, the equivalent capacitance is given as C naught. If half of the entire, as shown in the figure, is filled with a dielectric of permittivity R, then find the expression modified. So in the figure, you can see the dielectric is purely free space. Whereas in figure B, exactly half he is telling. That means area gets divided here. So half of the medium is free space and the other half is a dielectric medium. So what will be the modified capacitance? First, if you see the figure A, can you define what is the value of C naught capacitance? Let us say D is the separation in both the cases. So the value of C naught will be A into epsilon will be epsilon naught divided by D. So this is the value of C naught in figure A. So take it as equation 1. In figure, what happened? This is having some capacitance, that is a free space capacitance, and the dielectric medium is having another capacitance. So what will be the equivalent capacitance right now? C equivalent will be equal to C1 plus C2, because both are in parallel. And only the half of the area is getting divided. I can say the value of C1, how to write? The area is A by into, and C1 is in free space, so epsilon will be epsilon naught divided by D itself plus. So what is the value of capacitance in the dielectric medium? That is also having area A by 2 into permittivity will be epsilon naught into epsilon R divided by D. So what is the value of C equivalent here? A epsilon naught divided by D divided by 2D if you take common. So what you will get? 1 plus epsilon R. Right? You can cross check. So you know that A epsilon naught by D is nothing but the capacitance if there is only free space. C naught divided by 2 into 1 plus epsilon R. So once the medium is modified as in figure B, the net value of capacitance is given by this. So any questions in figure B? Have you understood? Because since half of the medium is getting divided, the area also gets divided. And in this case, your D remains same. Your spacing between the plates remains same. So have you understood the question now? So shall I move on to the next one? This you please try and tell me the answer. This question. So read the question, everybody. So there is a hollow metallic sphere of radius r is kept at a potential of 1 volt. Then the total electric flux coming out of the concentric spherical surface of radius greater than r. So you can see here, this is a hollow metallic sphere which has been given a voltage of 1 volt. So what is the radius of this? This radius of this sphere is given as r, right? Now what will happen? The moment once you apply a voltage to any conductor, since it is a metallic sphere, there will be some amount of the charge which will be induced. So can you tell what is the amount of charge induced on the sphere? What will be the amount of the charge induced on the sphere because of this 1 volt?
Is it V into 4 pi epsilon or
V, what is V?
1 volt?
1 volt, correct. How you got that equation?
Like we have V is equal to Q divided by 4 pi epsilon R. That is actually the V.
Okay,
So I just cross multiply.
that approach also you can follow, or otherwise we just now we have said for an isolated sphere, what will be the capacitance? You know that the capacitance is the ratio of charge divided by voltage, right? Now, to find out the charge, you can find out the capacitance into voltage. So what is the capacitance of an isolated sphere? Just now we have discussed. That is 4 pi epsilon into r. Because r is the radius of this sphere. Into how much voltage you applied between the light and with respect to ground? You have applied 1 volt. The amount of the charge induced on the surface will be 4 pi epsilon into r itself. So take it as equation 1. Now what he has done? This conducting sphere is enclosed with another conducting sphere of radius capital R. So using Gauss law, how much flux will be coming out of that surface now? So what is the Gauss law says? If we try to enclose any conductor with outer conductor, the amount of the flux leaving the outer conductor is exactly equal to the charge present inside it. That is what the Gauss law says, right? So what will be the total flux coming out right now is same as the charge carried by the inner conductor. So the charge carried by the inner conductor is right away 4 pi epsilon into R. So understood?
Yes, sir.
So this is the next question. Read the question carefully. So the capacitor consists of metallic plates having a dimensions of 100 by 100 mm square and separated by 6 mm. This between the metal plates is filled with a glass plate of 4 mm thickness and a layer of paper of 2 mm thickness having relative permittivity 8 and 2 respectively. Then find what is the equivalent capacitance between the plates. So put it in a diagram so that you can understand easily. So this is one plate and this is another plate. So the space is filled with two different dielectrics. This is of first one will be of 4 mm thickness and the second one will be of 2 thickness, and this permittivity is 8 and this permittivity is 2. So in this case, which is going to be constant? Area or the separation? Which is going to be constant? Is area constant or the separation constant here? So we have seen the capacitance in two cases. One is area constant, the other one is separation constant.
The area is constant.
Yes, area is constant. So straight away I can apply the formula here, and if you want to go in a conventional method you can do, or I can straight away apply the formula. So if area is constant, I have already given the formula for the equivalent capacitance, right? A epsilon naught divided by D1 by epsilon R1 plus D2 by epsilon R2. So you can substitute the value and tell me the answer. So everything is given. A is 100 by 100 mm square and epsilon naught value, you know, 8.85 into 10 power minus 12. And D1 is 4 mm and epsilon R1 is 8. D2 is 2 mm and epsilon R2 is equal to 2. So substitute the values. Everything is given. So I was giving an assignment. You can verify straight away. I was writing the answer here. You please cross check it after that. You are going to get a value of 59 picofarads roughly. So you can verify it later. So is it fine? So is it fine? Will you verify later?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can directly substitute the value and please cross check it out. So my intention is just like, since time is limited, I focus on the boundary condition. That is the reason why I have skipped the last question, the calculative part. And this is a kind of course where frequently you are expecting in GATE related to the boundary condition. So read the question. The region x less than 3 has a dielectric of epsilon r equal to 10, and the region x greater than 3 has a dielectric of epsilon r, I think 12. The region x less than 3, electric field intensity value is given. Then find the electric field intensity in the region x greater than 3. So he is talking about two different mediums. One is at x less than 3, other at x greater than 3. Which means that there is an interface located at x is equal to 3. So consider this is your x less than 3 and this is your x greater than 3. Okay, this is your medium 2 and this is your medium 1. So what is the electric field intensity in x less than 3 has given? You can say the electric field ax cap minus 3 ay cap plus 7 az cap. So this is the electric field intensity at x less than 3 and you have considered it as medium 2. So let me call it E2. I need to find out what is the electric field intensity in the first medium. So here he has given the first medium is having epsilon r is 5 here in the region x less than 3 and epsilon r equal to 12 in the second region. So this is, you can correct it, this is x greater than 3. So first thing was all our boundary conditions has been given in terms of tangential component and normal component, right? And you have to remember whatever the equation we have got by assuming that the wave enters from medium 2 to medium 1. Then what is our first boundary condition? E tan 1 is equal to E tan 2. So you know the electric field intensity in the second medium. How to switch into tangential component? So you can get it as a E tan 2 plus E normal 2. So there is a simple shortcut here. When you want to write a tangential component with respect to any interface, so look at the interface. So the interface is characterized by x is equal to 3. So for the surface x is equal to 3, which one will be the normal component? So when you have a plane which is equal to 3, what will be the direction which will be perpendicular to the surface? Which direction will be perpendicular?
Sir, is it Z?
How it will be?
Like a parallel to the Z-axis will be perpendicular to X-axis,
No.
right?
What do you mean by x is equal to 3? First of all, you should be able to visualize. X equal to is basically nothing but a YZ plane, isn't it?
But
When
X
I
is
say-
varying, sir.
Correct. X is varying, which means that x equal to 3 means x equal to 3 is a surface which is nothing but a surface which is parallel to the YZ plane at a distance of 3 meter. Okay. So generally, how will you write this one? Suppose if this is your x equal to 0, x equal to 0 is a YZ plane, right? X equal to 3 means it is parallel to the YZ plane at a distance of. Okay. So what is going to vary in the perpendicular direction? X. That's it. So that's what this is the same thing I have given already in the differential surfaces also. When x is equal to constant, the perpendicular direction is whichever is the constant one. So in this case, x is the constant. The direction which will be perpendicular is nothing but x component. So here your x component will be perpendicular. So in other words, what I can say, out of the given equation in E2, first x component represents the normal component. And the remaining term y and z, which lies along the surface or which lies parallel to the surface, you can call it as a tangential component. So what is the tangential component here? Since x is equal to constant, y and z will be tangential. And the normal component will be the x component. X component means 4ax cap. So you know that E tan 2 is same as your E tan 1 in both the mediums. So any questions you have?
Sir, this
Yes.
is like not this doubt, but like we usually used to calculate a normal to the surface is del dot of E or something like that, right, sir?
Okay, okay.
So can't we apply? We can't apply for this one, right?
No, it is a simple surface. No need to apply. That's what I was telling. Because whatever the surface I have given, here is a x equal to 3. It's a simple surface, right? If you have a complicated surface like, let us say, 2x plus 3y is equal to 1. Okay. And you have some electrical component. You may not be able to resolve tangential and normal component, right? That time, what you need to do, you take the equation of the surface, find the gradient. The gradient of the surface represents the normal component. Okay. For simple example, I will tell you. Right now, what is the condition I have given? X is equal to 3 is my surface. Right now, so you can take a f of x, which will be x minus 3 is equal to 0. Will you agree with me? This is my condition for the surface. Will you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Now, if we know the equation of any surface, the normal component is found by just doing the gradient of that. So what will be the
And
gradient of this? Of this
one.
function. Yeah, you are getting only x component, right? Which will be ax cap.
Yes,
Agree?
sir.
So that is the reason why I told when x is equal to 3, the normal component is nothing but your x component itself. Other than x component, the remaining term represents the tangential component. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we'll go back to the slide now. So that is the reason why, since x is equal to 3, I have mentioned the x component as a normal and the remaining together every is a tangential component. So using the first boundary condition, E tan 1 is equal to E tan 2. So you already know what is the, you need to find out first of all E1. E1 means you should E tan 1 and E normal 1. So E tan 1 already I got. So how to find out the normal component now? So you have the another boundary condition where D normal 1 is D normal is equal to rho s. This is the second boundary condition we got. And in the question I have given already, the interface is source free, which means there is no charge lies on the interface. So your rho s value will be 0. So what you will get in that case? D normal 1 is equal to D normal 2. So which means epsilon 1 E normal 1 is equal to epsilon 2 E normal 2. So what will be the value of E normal 1 now? Epsilon 2 divided by epsilon 1 into E normal 2. So epsilon 2 in the question will be, so what is the value of epsilon 2? That means in medium 2, that is 5. Divided by, what is the permittivity in first medium? It is 12. E normal 2 will be 4ax cap. So what you will get? 5 by 3 ax cap. So if you want to write the equation for electric field in the first medium, it is the sum of both tangential and normal component. So the tangential component I already given, minus 3 ay cap plus 7 az cap plus normal one you already got right now, 5 by 3 ax cap. So the point what you need to understand here was how I was resolving the electric field vector into tangential and normal component. And the next part is just apply the boundary conditions. So everybody, have you understood how to split into tangential and normal component? Yes. So try to answer this question. In the same example, suppose if the interface is located at z equal to 0, what will be the tangential component? If the interface is located at z equal to 0, what will be the tangential component? Tangential component I was talking. So when I say z is equal to 0, x and y represents the tangential component and the z component represents the normal. Correct. When I say z equal to 0, only the z component is normal. So that time this is your normal and the remaining two terms be your tangential component. Okay. So that way, once you are splitting it, then straight away apply the boundary condition. And last problem, you try to solve that. So the potential distribution is given by some function he has given, and epsilon naught is the permittivity. Then find the charge density in coulombs per meter square at 2, 0. So how to find out the charge density when you know the potential? Any idea? So it is gives the relation between your electric potential and then the charge density. So it is straight away the application of Poisson's equation, right? Del square V is equal to minus rho V by epsilon. This straight away gives the value of your rho V. So first find out del square V. So del square V is basically nothing but the divergence of gradient. So what is the gradient of this scalar function? So differentiate with respect to x. So that will be 60x square into ax cap plus differentiate this with respect to y. So 40y cube ay cap. And for this you need to apply the divergence. So when you apply the divergence, there is a shortcut. Differentiate ax coefficient with respect to x. So that will be 120x plus differentiate ay coefficient with respect to y. So 120y square. And here the observer position is at 2, 0. So the value of del square v at x is equal to 2 and y is equal to 0 will be. So 120 into 2, you will get 240 plus 0. So you are getting del square v value is equal to minus rho v by epsilon naught. So rho v is equal to minus 240 epsilon naught coulomb per meter cube. Now I am audible. Huh? Yeah. Good. So the advantages of the Poisson's equation was it basically gives how the electric potential varies in a spatial direction. So to solve the Poisson's equation, we start with the Gauss law. So we know that in a Gauss law, the divergence of the electric flux density equal to rho v, and we know the electric flux density is epsilon times c. So using that, what we'll get, del dot epsilon E is equal to rho v. So which results, and del dot E is equal to rho v by epsilon. And we already know the electric field intensity is the negative of gradient of potential, and we can substitute that. So we'll get del dot minus del v is equal to rho v by epsilon. So which means you will get del dot del v is called, in the vector identities we have seen, the Laplacian operator. So del square v is equal to minus rho v by epsilon. So this is basically said to be the Poisson's equation. So the application of Poisson's equation, you can find it out in your electronic devices and circuit theory. So where, suppose if you have a PN junction diode, and this is your depletion region, right? So if because P side is consisting of full of acceptor atoms and N side is consisting of full donor atoms, you know the charge density in P side and N side, right? Na into Q, and the charge density on N side is equal to Nd into Q. So once you know the value of rho v, and let us say it is varying, the potential varies in the x direction. So after solving the Poisson's equation, what you will get, so del square v can be written as d square by dx square is equal to some constant. So this value will be some constant. And the value of rho v I have given here on the P side, and this is on the N side. So when you try to solve this, and you will finally get how the potential varies as a function of distance. So that is one of the major application. But ultimately what the Poisson's equation says was the variation of this potential in a spatial direction. Suppose if the region is source free, suppose in the medium, if there are no charges exist, which means your rho v is equal to 0, then the Poisson's equation will be written as del square v is equal to